Suda51 is certainly one of the most notable auteurs of the video game industry. His games, while not always the most groundbreaking from a technical standpoint, they ooze character and style the likes of which are truly unique to him. His games are some of the few that were referred to as cult, games that may not appeal to everyone, but they have a dedicated audience. While Suda started to garner attention with a very unique Killer 7, the game that truly broke Suda into the mainstream was the Wii exclusive No More Heroes, a bloody hack and slash game that played and presented itself like no conventional character action game. It resembled a popular genre, but it inverted it through its use of motion controls and its hybrid of wrestling and swordplay, but most intriguing through its use of narrative and the influences it drew upon. No More Heroes is a mashup of so many ideas that we could theoretically spend all day discussing, but arguably the biggest source of inspiration comes from cult movies, and in particular, El Topo, by surrealist filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky. An auteur in his own field, Jodorowsky threw his hat into the world of films, with a rocky start, but he soon had audiences around the world with his second feature, which borrowed the conventions of Western films and subverted it through a hyper-violent lens that looked to explore spirituality and society as a whole. If they sound similar enough already, all the more sense to dive deeper in this analysis and compare them, and with the announcement of the new No More Heroes game in development for the Nintendo Switch, I felt the time more appropriate to look back on the first game in the franchise, the man behind the game, and arguably the biggest influence that the game owes. Just as a heads up, there will be spoilers for both No More Heroes and El Topo. Before No More Heroes, Suda51 had gotten his start with Human Entertainment, a company best known for their Fire Pro Wrestling series, which Suda had a hand in, notably by having one of the Fire Pro games end with your protagonist committing suicide. He would leave the company to start his own, Grasshopper Manufacture. They set out to make unique games, but most of their games stayed in Japan, with the exception of Michigan Report from Hell, which made it to Europe, Australia, but surprisingly not Michigan. Killer 7 marked Suda's first game to make it to the United States, as part of the 5 Capcom published exclusives for the GameCube. Killer 7 would be the introduction to the man and his unorthodox style of game design and storytelling. Alejandro Jodorowsky is an interesting artist in his own right, having done seemingly a bit of everything during his career, from studying pantomime, tarot card reading, to comic book writing. He's best famous for his films, which many would say were a bit ahead of their time. His first feature, Fando y Liz, had a riot break out during its premiere, and Jodorowsky is stated to have received many death threats for making the film. His second feature, El Topo, was truly a launching point of his career. It's often credited as being the first midnight movie, a trend of many low-budget independent films being screened at theaters at midnight. El Topo caught the eye of John Lennon, who urged Alan Klein, a former Beatles manager, to distribute the film. Both of these men have tackled their medium in a less than conventional way, and continue to do so now. What they lack in hefty budgets, they more than make up with their unique vision and style choices. It's hard not to recognize their hand apart from others in their respective fields. I would like to say I had this idea on my own to compare them, but really the idea comes directly from Suda51, who directly cited El Topo as an influence of his when designing No More Heroes. In fact, there's an old Game Trailers interview that tried to press on just how deep the comparison was. The real takeaway from Suda's response is the influence of narrative and structure. Thematically, the works do coalesce, but El Topo runs on a different tangent. No More Heroes is the rising to the top of the ladder story, but once up on the ladder, there's nowhere else to go but down. El Topo carries this motif, but unlike Travis in the sequel, El Topo's journey differs significantly. Both works have a fairly similar plot, with a stubborn, violent protagonist who's strung along a journey against the greatest fighters in their respective worlds. The narrative has a female lead who fuels their motivation to be the best, a la Lady Macbeth. The differences are really in some of the details, but they follow many of the same thematic points. In El Topo, the titular character is persuaded by Mara to take on the 4 greatest gunmasters because she can only be with the greatest. Similarly, Travis stumbles into the assassin underworld through Sylvia Crystal, with a deal being struck that if he defeats the 10 assassins above his rank, he is awarded the prize of the sex. Most important in the structure is the confrontations the characters have with their fellow gunfighters, or assassins, but we'll hold on to that for just a little while. El Topo can be divided into 2 parts. Part 1 will be the most relevant in this comparison, as it is the part that follows the task to kill the 4 gunmasters. while the second half is more about El Topo's path towards redemption. No More Heroes does have a sequel, but the comparison to El Topo cuts short, since it is more of a classic example of B-movie revenge films, like Death Wish 2 or something along those lines, since it doesn't follow through El Topo's path. I mean, we don't see Travis going through some kind of bizarre rebirth ritual, or doing pantomime acts for his new jobs. Well, maybe the new No More Heroes could... Nah, never mind. The characters of these narratives have quite a lot in common. The real differences comes as a result of context and tone. Little is known of their lives prior to the start of their journey. We know that El Topo has a son from a presumably separated or deceased mother. With Travis, we do have a bit more information that's revealed through some of the game's supplemental material, merely of his otaku lifestyle and his impulse online purchase of the Beam Katana. As the narrative grows, we don't learn more about El Topo's past, but we do learn more about Travis's, as it is key to setting up the final confrontation against his half-sister Jean, and his true motivation for entering the Assassins Association. From the beginning, both of these characters start off as quite brash, cocky, and debatably quite apathetic to the sense of morality. Fuckhead! It reaches levels of nihilism with El Topo, who takes extreme action against his opponents, proclaiming to be their god and castrated to send a message. Travis's attitude is more the result of being naive about the line of work. His confrontation with death metal exemplifies this, as his thoughts run the gambit of seeing himself in death metal, living the life of luxury and the blood money. But even as he fantasizes, he starts to question whether or not he's made the right decision to jump straight into this adventure, searching for paradise. The monologue is a brilliant moment of writing on the part of Suda and his team, and I can't help but see the parallel between El Topo's opening narration.
El topo es un animal que cava galerías bajo la tierra, buscando el sol. A veces, su camino lo lleva a la superficie. Cuando ve el sol, queda ciego.
The opening lines present the thematic turn that both works take, ultimately one that I like to refer to as the empty journey, meaning that the goal that the heroes strive for ultimately means nothing anymore, for one reason or another. This is done differently between the two. In El Topo, it's alluded to progressively through his struggles to defeat the Gun Masters, as El Topo resorts to underhanded means to defeat the Masters. Upon his confrontation with the Final Master, does the emptiness truly set in? El Topo discovers that the Final Master no longer fights, having adopted a peaceful life. Not pleased with his response, El Topo, still determined, shoots him, and, well... Anyways, El Topo is left morally defeated. The last master is on a scale above his own, and pursuing a fight is meaningless, a phrase further cemented by the committal of suicide. El Topo is the last remaining gunfighter, but the victory doesn't feel earned. He couldn't defeat the masters legitimately, and there was no contest with the final master. This leads them down a journey of destruction to find meaning where there potentially lies none. Travis does come across his share of no contest, notably the scheduled fight with Let's Shake, which ends in an empty win for Travis, due to the interference of his brother Henry, who metaphorically drops the mic on Travis's venture. Both Henry and Sylvia's mother informed Travis of the illegitimacy of the association, namely that it was cooked up by Sylvia to afford her forays into high life. The female leads of these narratives follow the Lady Macbeth trope, that the men must be the best if they desire their companionship. Mara literally uses her body to persuade El Topo to abandon his son and ride off into the sunset. Sylvia uses her charms too. After all, even though it's Travis that proposes the prize with the sexy times, she uses it herself to propel Travis up the assassin's ranks. The ladies are shown to be a little bit on the manipulative side, and are definitely shown to be for their own self-interest. For Sylvia, it's money to fund her wild escapades that Henry, her husband, can't afford her, and with Mara, it's honestly left a little bit too Lady Macbeth-like, and she truly desires the greatest and does whatever the cost. After all, El Topo isn't the only one there trying to become the greatest. There's La Desconocida, a female gunfighter who is introduced waiting for the first gunmaster to accept the challenge. She follows them after El Topo gets bumped up the deli counter and kills him. Mara strives for the best. After all, she puts up with some abuse on the part of El Topo, and she immediately floats over to La Desconocida after she hastily takes away the empty title from El Topo. Mara's character never really goes further beyond that. The only other noteworthy scenes involve her becoming obsessed with her own vanity, or to the lengths that she'll go to be with the best, be it Belmont Castlevania whip mirror matches or suggestive eating. So much of the character's personality and motives are revealed through such a short amount of time. While El Topo only spent its first half devoted to the gunfighters, No More Heroes makes it the center of the game. In these worlds, the deathmatches present an opportunity for two warriors, two killers, to wax philosophy over their morality, existentialism, working at the post office, and toothpick pyramid crafting? Whatever floats your boat. These confrontations vary in their formalities, obviously, because Jodorowsky and Suda use these segments to present a different personality. A whole new idea into the spectrum, whether it was to show an opposing philosophy through an analogy, or as an opportune time to draw influences from other staples of cult cinema. The battles and outside interactions are key to narrative and character progression, the stepping stones to the meaningless journey, wherein which our protags inch further into the garden of madness. Both have a quintessential step wherein which the characters meet their kindred spirits in their line of work. El Topo meets the third master, who shares their love of music. It's in fact how the master chooses to meet despite knowing that death has come. While visually polar opposites, one clad in black and the other in white, they relate the most and almost seem like they could be harmonious in their union, as a yin and yang, but the duel is inevitable. While El Topo still uses debatable tactics, he still respects the third master enough to bury him with his rapids, which is important as it is the biggest display of respect the character has shown prior to his change of heart. For Travis, there's the confrontation with Holly Summers, a character that marks a clear turning point for Travis' ascent through the ranks. Prior to the match with Holly, Travis couldn't find himself to kill Shinobu, his first battle against a female assassin, and Holly addresses this when Travis hesitates to kill her off. A vulnerability in Travis that further drives Holly's splash screen quote, "Still just a bud." While Travis is killed, he certainly hasn't fully delved into the assassin world, and holds a bit of a soft spot. Holly Summers' death doesn't come by Travis' hand, but you see something change in Travis as he grieves for Holly, who receives a similar honorable burial as the third master. A display of respect is given to Holly, then Travis treks forward, realizing that hesitation isn't in the arsenal of an assassin. Along with moral codes, hesitation can mean death. This just leaves the assassins and the gunmasters of these pieces to compare. In El Topo there's 4, while No More Heroes has 11, but really 10. You don't fight them all. The masters in El Topo do all use revolvers, but they're made unique through their appearance, setting, mantra, and ability. The gunmasters do have their own unique abilities, but they're left quite vague and are only briefly alluded to, such as the first master, who now rarely bleeds because he has manifested the void into his being. The second master has found the perfect balance of precision and power, key to the ability to create. The first two masters are disciplined with physical abilities that El Topo doesn't have, tactfulness in his technique and in his spirit. The third and fourth masters we know next to nothing about their abilities. The third we simply are told of his perfect accuracy that has made him overconfident to the point of only using one bullet, and the fourth has become a pacifist. In No More Heroes, the assassins are the culmination of Suda51's cinematic influences. Some more obvious than others. We see elements of Charles Bronson from the Death Wish films in the visual appearance of Dr. Peace. Shinobu Jacobs is a mashup of blaxploitation martial arts films with a Chambara twist. You see the assassins fall into various archetypes, and it all falls on their weapon choice and personality. They aren't limited to using revolvers like they are in El Topo, and this comes from the focus of the works being different. The assassins in No More Heroes are comparably more grounded than their El Topo equivalents. The details of their origin are revealed through the collectible cards you get during the New Game Plus mode, and their abilities aren't anything metaphysical. Yet. The works are quite similar, and it's obvious that Suda51 drew upon it, but the aim of the pieces does divert, as seen through the ending. In El Topo, the journey to fight the Four Masters is only the first half. After the victory is taken away from El Topo, he goes into a blind rage, looking for answers, but this is cut short, as La Desconocida sees him as the last gunmaster, and opportunistically shoots him in an effort to claim the title for herself. Mata even leaves since her end goal was to be with the best. El Topo doesn't die here. He is rescued by the outcasts of a nearby village and is essentially in a long coma. No, not like that. Although it does take somewhere around 90 years or more for him to recover. The rest of the film follows a reborn El Topo, who sets out to help the meek outsiders who have saved his life by making a more accessible opening for them to leave the cave that they've been ousted to. And across the second half, he raises money in a town run by a violent hedonistic cult, encounters a son who vows to kill him for abandoning him, and falls in love. No More Heroes' narrative has already dispelled the Assassins Association and Sylvia's credibility, but Travis treks forward. The final assassin is another fake-out to the real final boss, Travis' half-sister Jean, the one responsible for his family's death. It's here we finally learn the context of Sylvia and Travis' first encounter. It wasn't one of flirtation as it's implied in the game's opening, rather it's Travis' sorrowful frustration of losing his family. We are given a great glimpse of Travis' real motivation of becoming involved. He evidently does receive his wish of killing Jean, the one responsible for taking away everything close to him. Arguably, does this make Travis' journey as meaningless as I made it out to seem? It's a bit of yes and a bit of no. There's a lot that can be summed up from this, but it's best to look at where his motivations were. One was to be the top of the Assassin's Ring, which he does become, but the legitimacy of the association is called into question. Without credibility, his title wouldn't signify much. 2. The sex with Sylvia. This one is pretty arguable from what is explicitly shown and what's implied. We see some flirtation most definitely, and in No More Heroes 2, Travis states to have already tasted those goods. The most we see is the curtain drop following Harvey's defeat. The condition was that the prize of sex would be awarded once Travis became number 1, and by the last third of the game we know Sylvia to be MIA. So it could be argued on both sides, I feel. There are some remarks that Travis makes to Henry that implies something, but you could also take it as Travis simply messing with him. In a way, Travis does accomplish the original goal he had set out for, in killing Jean. But his mind had repressed all the memories so much that he only remembers the events until he sees Jean again. Hell, he almost thought that Darkstar was his father. So, in a way, it's arguable if his journey was really meaningless. But as the ending shows, it does lead him down a life where just about anyone could come after him at any point. I'd admit, recounting these was a great amount of fun, and just looking at how much of the same DNA they have. They are ultimately works that are very similar, but overall unique to themselves. Both happen to be some of my favorite works by two of my favorite creators that inspired me to try something unique for myself. They may lack the polish of the AAA movies and games that come out every year, but they leave a long-lasting impression. I cannot recall any lines that the villain from Avatar said, but I can recite all the Assassin's splash screen quotes and recall how all the Gunmasters die. These works say more with less and truly exude style and substance grander than many of the big titles. What am I saying? I'm overanalyzing a game where you're charged with masturbation motions and a movie that features this. Okay, I think we're done here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know there's some stuff missing, but perhaps we could follow up on it later. Until then, hope you guys keep an eye on the channel to see more stuff like this and reviews.